For the longest time, Red Hair Shanks has been among the most speculated among characters in One Piece, but one of the oldest theories about him is that Shanks is secretly an evil person. These theories have however exploded in number after Shanks was not only revealed to be of celestial dragon blood, but this revelation also coming with the added twist that Shanks has a literal evil twin brother. On top of the classic theories about Shanks being a secret villain, the fandom is also now filled with speculation about Shanks all this time working for the celestial dragons, or even about him having at some point secretly switched places with his brother. But I can actually with 100% certainty confirm that these theories are all impossible. This is because there is a scene all the way back in the pre-time skip that not only confirms the Shanks we've known since chapter 1 is the same person who was on Roger's ship, but also that Shanks is unquestionably a good person at heart. This scene comes from One Piece chapter 590, which is the only time in the whole story where we are shown Shanks' inner thoughts. Shanks in this chapter is attending Whitebeard and Ace's funeral with his crew and the Whitebeard pirates, but the one Shanks is actually thinking about is neither of the dead characters, but instead Luffy. Shanks feels incredibly sorry for Luffy after he had lost his brother, where he knows that Luffy is in a lot of pain right now, and Shanks in his thoughts is telling Luffy that it's okay to cry. Shanks here actually reminisces about Roger, calling him his captain, and thinking that just like Ace, Roger would refuse to run if it meant that his loved ones were in danger. I would next like to briefly go over just how much this one scene confirmed about Shanks. For one, this scene proves that the Shanks we know is very clearly the same person who spent his childhood sailing with the Roger pirates. He not only in his own thoughts calls Roger his captain, but even knows accurate details about him, where the part about Roger refusing to run away is dead on. Another way to look at this is that any idea of Shanks and Shamrock switching places while Shanks was working for the government is based on this scene actually impossible. This scene confirms that the man who received the scar over his left eye is 100% just Shanks, not Shamrock. Interestingly, this also likely means that even after Shanks betrayed the government, he never switched places with Shamrock, where in almost all of his scenes in the story, we actually get to see the scar. The only real exception is the reverie meeting with the Gorosei, and some of Shanks' off-page moments, like his fight with Kaido, though I personally don't think it could have been Shamrock who fought Kaido, as his Vibra card confirms that Kaido faced off against the Red Hair Pirates. But at least to me, I doubt Shanks would even want to cooperate with a villain like Shamrock, where by far the biggest thing this funeral scene confirms is that Shanks in his heart is a good person. Theories about Shanks being a secretly evil character who's always been using Luffy have been around longer than a good portion of the fanbase has even been alive. But in light of this scene, they're pretty much all baseless. These are Shanks' own thoughts, where they're meant for no one but him to hear, where he here is not manipulating anyone or putting on any kind of act. Instead, Shanks is just feeling very bad for Luffy and genuinely wants him to get better. Not only Luffy, but Shanks in this scene also shows how much he cared for Roger, where he for Roger's own sake wished that his captain had sometimes run away or let himself cry. As good of an actor as Shanks in the most recent chapter has revealed himself to be, this scene proves that he's on the inside a very empathetic person who cares a lot for other people. But while this might be the only scene where we get to hear Shanks' thoughts, I would argue that most of Shanks' actions in the story already show that he's a good person. One thing Shanks mentioned in this scene is that it was okay to cry, but we actually know that he lives by this advice, as hundreds of chapters later in the final saga, Shanks is brought to tears after learning how loyal Luffy's followers are. Shanks in this moment is with his crew, so he really has no reason to pretend, but just like during the funeral scene, Shanks here once again proves that he cares for Luffy as a person, and not just as some tool to manipulate. I don't even really think this is a point worth arguing, as the manga is full of moments like this, where Shanks says good things about Luffy, even though he isn't around. Yet, Shanks also has plenty of selfless moments throughout the story, even outside his bond with Luffy, which I will next go over. By the way, just a quick reminder that you should subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying this video so far. When he was working for the government, Shanks decided to aid Fisher Tiger in freeing the Holy Land slaves. In context, however, Shanks was taking a massive personal risk here. He had likely put forth a lot of effort in earning the Celestial Dragon's trust, as Shanks before this point had spent his entire life as an outlaw, yet he was willing to risk all his effort and his own safety just to help Tiger. This is however pretty much the kind of person Shanks is. Despite being a pirate, Shanks is in fact generous to a fault. He arranged Whitebeard's funeral, despite the two having been rivals. He postponed his own plans just to catch up with Dory and Broggy after meeting them for the first time in years. Even though he's an emperor, he's taken a host of weak pirate crews under his flag, and is very determined to protect them. Shanks' generosity is also on full display all the way back in chapter 1, where he doesn't at all mind taking it on the chin with Higuma, just to avoid needless violence. It's pretty funny that Shanks' crew in chapter 1 says that they're no saints, even though based on all the scenes I just went over, Shanks is one of the most well-intentioned characters in the story. Though as we know, the literal saints of the One Piece world are far from saintly. There's even an argument that this scene refers to Shanks' own celestial dragon background, as the kanji Beckman uses here is the exact same kanji the manga uses for the celestial dragon's saint titles. Personally, Shanks clearly being this kind of a well-meaning person is also why my interpretation, still even after over 1000 chapters, is that he has no grand plan for Luffy. Based on the kind of man Shanks has shown himself to be, I genuinely think their relationship really just stems from Luffy reminding Shanks of himself and Roger, and Shanks deciding to bet on Luffy's future as a pirate, while he might have known details, such as Luffy being related to Garp, or him having in fact eaten the Nika fruit. I don't really think these mattered that much to Shanks. When he later talks to Rayleigh about Luffy, Shanks seemingly didn't care for Luffy's devil fruit, his lineage, or anything like that, but the only thing Shanks was interested in was that he had found a kid who had said the exact same words as his captain. I think the most funny argument for why Shanks is however very likely not an evil person is that Eiichiro Oda has actually said that among all the thousands of One Piece characters, Shanks is the one he's personally the most like. Now, even though the way he sometimes likes to draw Bonnie is very suspicious, I personally doubt that Oda sees himself as an evil man. If he actually is one, he's doing an even better job hiding it than Shanks. Dedicating your life to drawing a shonen adventure manga is a pretty unique way for a villain to operate. But hey, what do I know? It could also be a part of his master plan to corrupt young people. I made this video pretty quickly, but there honestly really wasn't that much material to go over, where the funeral scene genuinely is all the proof you need, and everything else I covered was just extra. But there is however one idea this video did not debunk. Even if Shanks and Shamrock did switch places as adults, this does not mean that it did not happen. To understand what I mean by this, you should click here to watch my other video, where I break down the idea that the twins may well have been switched, but that this actually happened at God Valley, where the kid who wound up with Roger was actually Shamrock. Thanks a lot to all my members for their bountiful haul, but also big thanks to everyone who watched this video to the end. Take it easy.